Good morning, students. Once again, welcome back in Social Science live class for Standard 10th. As I have mentioned in yesterday's live class, that from today onwards, we are going to start with a revision, okay, for the syllabus that is mentioned for your first online assessment test, okay. So though I have already sent the syllabus, okay, in WhatsApp group, but again I am telling you in this online class, okay. So please be careful in this coming first online assessment, which is going to be commenced from 21st of September. The syllabus for class 10th social science is geography chapter first, okay. Now the name of the chapter is resources and development, okay. And then chapter second is agriculture. Now some of the students have doubt because in your textbook chapter second and third are something different, okay. So the textbook that you have, chapter second is forest and wildlife resources and chapter third is water resources, okay. So according to the textbook, these are the two chapters, but as far as concerned about the syllabus which is being reduced by the CBSE, okay, the 30% reduced syllabus, in that reduced syllabus, chapter second and third, that is chapter second is forest and wildlife resources, according to the textbook, that is being omitted, and chapter third according to the textbook, water resources, is also omitted. Got it? So now हमारे syllabus के हिसाब से which is chapter 1 resources and development, हमारे syllabus के हिसाब से which is chapter 2 agriculture. So these two chapters are coming, okay. Got it? They are coming in only periodic test. ठीक है बेटा? So chapter 1 resources and development and chapter 2 is agriculture. Then from civics portion, that is democratic politics, okay, the two chapters are coming. Chapter 1 is power sharing and chapter 2 is federalism, okay. And then chapter 1 from economics portion, okay. So this is what our syllabus for the first online assessment, which is going to be start from 21st of September. I have already shared all the notes, okay, from these chapters to all the students, okay. Now the notes that I have shared were of subjective type, the theoretical questions, okay. Whereas in your periodic assessment first, okay, that is online assessment, you will be having 15 marks objective type question. How much? 15 marks, okay. Now these 15 marks objective questions would be prepared from the chapters, okay, internal, as well as from the chapter and exercise given in your textbook. So for the best preparation of exam, you people have to thoroughly read out these chapters also from the textbook. Got it, students? Apart from preparing the question answer for the theoretical portion, okay. So that's all from my side as far as concerned about your exam. If you would have any query, okay, in coming days, you are free to ask. So today we are going to start with the revision, okay, from geography chapter 1. The name of the chapter is resources and development. Okay, so as the name suggests, in this chapter we are going to discuss about the resources. Now, what is resources? Anything that we means the human being get from this environment, which are useful, or we can say those things are fulfilling our needs. ठीक है, वो सारी चीजें जो हमारी नीड्स को, हमारी जरूरतों को क्या कर रही हैं, फुलफिल कर रही हैं. ओके, so those are called as what? Resources. Got it, students? So the first section which is given in our textbook, okay, is what? The types of resources. So the first section that is being given in our textbook is what? Types of resources. Okay, now again, the types of resources can be identified based on different criterias. Okay, getting it? It means on what basis we are considering the resources. So on the basis of different criterias, again the resources can be classified. Okay, so the first criteria that we are going to discuss is the criteria, that is types of resources on the basis of origin. Types of resources on the basis of origin. Origin means from where are we getting these resources. Okay, so the first criteria is on the basis of origin. Okay, now on the basis of origin, the resources can be classified into biotic resources. Which resources, beta? Biotic resources. Okay, now so biotic resources are obtained from biosphere and have life, such as the human beings, flora and fauna, fisheries, and livestock. Okay, so what are the biotic resources? These are obtained from biosphere. Okay, so instead of that, a much simpler word we can use, these are obtained from living things. Okay, like human being. Okay, now it means that the human being itself is considered as a biotic resources. Okay, so these are obtained from living things like human beings. Okay, then flora and fauna. Okay, flora and fauna is related to what? Basically the animal life and plant life. Okay, then apart from that, fisheries. Now fisheries means the different types of fishes. Okay, and livestock. Now fisheries means the different type of fishes. Livestock is basically related to all those animals or the species of bird that human being is rearing for the purpose of consumption. For example, cow, buffaloes, goat, turkey, ostrich, okay, hen, So all these are considered as what? Livestock. Okay. Then the horses that we are rearing. So all the animals or the birds which we rear for fulfilling our needs. Everything comes under what? Livestock. Okay. So the biotic resources are obtained from living things like human beings, flora and fauna, fisheries, and livestock. Got it? Then the second is what? Abiotic resources. So the second classification is abiotic resources. Okay. So all those things which are composed of non-living, okay, are called as abiotic resources. So all those things which are composed of, okay, so all those things which are composed of non-living, which are composed of non-living things are called as, okay, these are called as what? Abiotic resources. Okay, so on the basis of origin, resources can be classified as the biotic resources and abiotic resources. Okay, then the second criteria is what? On the basis of, the second criteria is on the basis of exhaustibility. Okay, on the basis of exhaustibility. Okay, now exhaustibility means खत्म होंगे या नहीं होंगे. Exhaust means whether it would end or not. Okay, so on the basis of exhaustibility, the resources can be again classified as renewable resources. Okay, so on the basis of exhaustibility, again the resources can be classified as renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Okay, so these renewable resources, can be reproduced. These resources can be reproduced, okay, by physical, chemical, okay, by physical, chemical, or mechanical processes. Okay, so renewable resources are, or renewable resources can be reproduced by any physical process or a chemical process or a mechanical process. Okay, for example, solar and wind energy are considered as a renewable resources. Then water is a renewable resource, forest and wildlife is a renewable resource. Okay, then non-renewable resources. Now, non-renewable resources are those resources which cannot be renewed. These resources cannot be renewed or reproduced. Okay, these resources cannot be renewed or reproduced within a considerable time period. Okay, so non-renewable resources. These resources cannot be renewed or reproduced within a considerable time period. Okay, so ये वो resources हैं जिन्हें एक considerable time period में renewed नहीं किया जा सकता, reproduce नहीं किया जा सकता. What does it actually mean? We can take an example of petroleum oil. If we speak a sentence, petroleum cannot be reproduced, okay, then in terms of scientific data, this sentence is wrong because it can be produced. It is produced in nature through the chemical process, okay. तो नेचर में कहीं ना कहीं से क्या हुआ था, ये प्रोड्यूस हुआ था. अब प्रोड्यूस किस प्रकार हुआ, उसकी एक पर्टिकुलर प्रोसेस है, एंड दैट द साइंटिस्ट हैव डिस्कवर्ड. ओके, सो वो प्रोसेस को उतने समय के लिए यदि किया जाए, मौका मिले, तो निश्चित रूप से पेट्रोलियम प्रोड्यूस होगा. ओके, बट व्हाई वी आर कंसिडरिंग पेट्रोलियम एज ए नॉन रिन्यूएबल रिसोर्स? द रीजन इज they could not be produced in a considerable time period. Okay, the natural process है petroleum produce होने का, it takes millions of years. Okay, so millions of years लगने वाले हैं, so करोड़ों सालों के बाद कोई चीज दोबारा प्रोड्यूस होगी, that may not be or that won't have any use for the present generation. So in that sense, petroleum is a non-renewable resource. Because of that, this particular term is used. Is it clear, students? Okay, so these are the two bases. On the basis of origin, biotic resources, abiotic resource. On the basis of exhaustibility, renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Okay, now students, likewise on the basis of ownership. Okay, now on the basis of ownership means who is owing the resources, who is owing the resources, resources किसके कंट्रोल में है, कौन resources का मालिक है. Okay, so on the basis of this, resources can be classified into 4 categories. I am repeating again, on the basis of ownership, resources can be classified into 4 categories. What are these categories? Individual resources. Okay, now do all of you have textbook with you, students? You can go through the textbook also. Okay, since the portion is comparatively very simple, now I would like to avoid too much writing on the board. Okay, I will just write the bullet points only and rest I will explain, okay, through verbal communication. So on the basis of ownership, the second criteria is, sorry, the third is what? on the basis of ownership. Okay, now so on the basis of ownership, resources can be classified into four major categories. Okay, so the first category is individual resources. Okay, now what are individual resources, beta? Individual resources are those resources which are owned by the private people. That is a one single person, or maybe a one single family, or maybe few families owned the resources. Okay, so individual resources are controlled by, they are run by, they are owned by individual people. Okay, so that is what the individual resources. For example, many farmers own the land which is allotted to them by government against the payment of revenue. In villages, there are people with land ownership, but there are many who are landless. Urban people, that is the people in towns and cities, they own plots, houses and other properties. Okay, so all these are considered as what? Individual resources. किसी एक व्यक्ति का, एक परिवार का क्या है उस पर मालिकाना हक. Then the second is what? The second category or categorization is community owned resources. Okay. Now in case of the community owned resources, Ashish, what is Agenda 21? Okay. Agenda 21 is basically a detailed program adopted by the leaders of different countries of the world in the year 1992, when the leaders of all these countries of the world had a meeting at a place in Brazil. The name of the place is Rio de Janeiro. So in the city Rio de Janeiro of Brazil, around heads, more than 100 heads of the different countries met, and the aim of the meeting was the protection of environment. Okay, the meeting was called as the first International Earth Summit. In that first International Earth Summit, lot of things were discussed for the protection of environment on earth. Okay, and on the basis of the entire discussion, a 21-point program was prepared in this first International Earth Summit. Got it? So वो जो प्रोग्राम था उसमें 21 डिफरेंट पॉइंट्स चॉक आउट किए गए थे, लिखे गए थे कि थ्रू these measures, these ways, through these activities, okay, at the world level, all the countries join their hands together for the protection of environment, to reduce poverty, okay, to fight against the diseases through global cooperation on common interest, mutual needs, and the shared responsibility. Okay, so that is known as what? Agenda 21. Good morning, Ashish. Ashish Badki, beta, good morning. Ashish Badki, beta, good morning. Good. Okay, so the individual resources, are owned by individual people. Now community owned resources means those resources which are owned and used not by the one single family, not by the one single person, but they are owned, they are operated, they are used by all the people living in that proximity or area. Okay, so these resources are accessible to all the members of the community. For example, railway transportation. Okay, so railway transportation can be accessed by all the people in the community. So we can say railways are community owned resources. Okay, likewise the government schools, even the private schools. Private schools, when we are saying, we are not saying individual resource. Okay, यहाँ पर जो ओनरशिप है वो किस पे कि कौन को एक्सेस है, ठीक है. So the school can be accessed by all the members living in the community. So schools can be considered as a community owned resources. Okay, then the public parks made in different towns and cities. So the public parks can also be considered as what? The community owned resources. Okay, like the burial grounds, okay, the pond in the village, different picnic spots, okay, the dams which are being constructed in the country, cinema hall, okay, the railway station, bus stand, bus facilities. So very simple, which can be accessible by all the people in the community. So they are what? Community owned resources. Yes, आशीष, करंट फॉलो लैंड. करंट फॉलो लैंड का मतलब ऐसी जमीन जो खेती करने के लायक तो है, ऐसी जमीन जो खेती करने के लायक है, बंजर नहीं है, परंतु हमने इस साल के लिए या 1-2 साल के लिए उसे पड़ती छोड़ रखा है, हम उस पे फिलहाल में खेती नहीं कर रहे हैं. दैट इज व्हाट current follow land. Radha, everything is given in textbook, beta. Just it need to read the textbook. It need to read the textbook. If you read the textbook in a proper manner, okay, you won't have many doubts. Okay. Well, so the community owned resources. And then next is what? National resources. Now when we say national resources, okay, so all the resources, national resources means all the resources which are there in the country. I am repeating, all the resources which are there in the country, whether they are the individual resources or whether they are the community owned resources, all the resources will automatically become national resource. Okay, so all the resources belong to the nation. In legal terms, the country has legal power to acquire even private property for the public goods. Okay, so in practical sense में कंट्री में जितने भी रिसोर्सेज हैं वो सारे के सारे क्या कहलाएंगे? नेशनल रिसोर्सेज कहलाएंगे, वेदर इट इज एन इंडिविजुअल रिसोर्स और वेदर इट इज ए कम्युनिटी ओन्ड रिसोर्स. Okay, so they are basically the property or the resources of nation, of a country. Okay, and if the country required, if the nation required any resources for the welfare of the country or the nation, then the country, that is the government of the country, can acquire the individual resource also as well as the community resource also. जैसे अभी कोरोना डिजीज का टाइम पीरियड चल रहा है, so सो नंबर ऑफ टाइम्स आप लोगों ने सुना होगा कि गवर्नमेंट ने अलग अलग हॉस्पिटल्स को क्या कर दिया है, कोविड डेडिकेटेड हॉस्पिटल्स डिक्लेयर कर दिया। ठीक है, तो बहुत सारे ऐसे प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल्स हैं जिसमें भी गवर्नमेंट ने ये शर्त लगा दी कि इन दीज हॉस्पिटल्स which patients should be admitted, the patients who are suffering from COVID-19। ठीक है, सो कहने को वो इंडिविजुअल रिसोर्स था, कहने को प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल क्या था, इंडिविजुअल रिसोर्स था, क्योंकि उसका एक ही ओनर था, है ना, ओनरशिप एक ही व्यक्ति के पास थी। बट दीज इंडिविजुअल रिसोर्सेज आर बेसिकली इन प्रैक्टिकल सेंस द नेशनल रिसोर्स। सो इफ द गवर्नमेंट रिक्वायर्ड, then for the purpose of welfare of the people, government can acquire any resource. Okay, so that is what the individual resources and community owned resources both falls under the national resource. Then international resource. Okay, now this is the most important, this is the most important point. Okay, now there are international institutions which regulate some resources. Okay, the oceanic resources beyond the 200 kilometer of any exclusive economic zone belong to open ocean, and no individual country can utilize these resources without the concurrence of international institution। ठीक है, सो वो रिसोर्सेज जो नेशनल रिसोर्स नहीं है। अब नेशनल रिसोर्स नहीं है मतलब ऐसा कोई रिसोर्स जो किसी कंट्री के, किसी भी कंट्री के ओनरशिप में नहीं आएगा। ठीक है, दैट रिसोर्स इज कंसिडर्ड एज व्हाट, इंटरनेशनल रिसोर्स। ठीक है, वन पॉइंट दैट आई हैव मिस्ड regarding the national resource। ठीक है, so all the mineral resources, water resources, forest, wildlife and land within the political boundary of country and oceanic area up to 12 nautical mile। now 12 nautical mile का मतलब होता है जब समुद्र में, कहां पर बेटा, समुद्र में जब डिस्टेंस कवर करते हैं तो उसके लिए जो यूनिट यूज की जाती है दैट इज व्हाट, नॉटिकल माइल। ठीक है, सो 12 नॉटिकल माइल इज इक्वल टू 19.2 किलोमीटर। ठीक है, सो ना सिर्फ जमीन पर बल्कि किसी भी कंट्री के कोस्टल एरिया से, किसी भी कंट्री के समुद्र तट से 19.2 किलोमीटर की डिस्टेंस तक का जो भी समुद्र है, उस समुद्र में जितने भी रिसोर्सेज हैं, दैट इज द फिशरीज, दे कैन गेट द सॉल्ट आउट ऑफ इट, इफ दे कैन होल्ड, दे कैन डिग अप द पेट्रोलियम वेल आल्सो देयर। ओके, सो समुद्र किनारे से 19.2 किलोमीटर डिस्टेंस तक का जितना भी इलाका है, दैट इज व्हाट, द national resources। Okay, so the time is over for this class। Okay, the next class is supposed to start in this room। so that's all for today's live class, and I hope that all the students would already started their preparation, their revision at home also for the first online assessment। Okay, so we'll try to cover each and everything through the revision, but still I hope that lot of preparation should be done by the students from their own side। Okay, so please work out, and if you have any doubt you can ask your questions। Okay, so thank you students, goodbye।
कितने बजे पहुंचेगा बारिश के पहले?